give Jackie Kenyon a chance to get here. She's running a little bit late, but so we'll go ahead and get started and let the minutes reflect that she's here when she gets here. With that, we'll call the March 1st, 2022 Edgefield County Council meeting to order. I'd like to ask Reverend Willie Patton if he will lead us in an invocation from Republican Grove Baptist Church. Reverend Patton, please stand.
Let's bow in prayer. Our Father in heaven, again, how grateful we are to be able to come into your divine and in your holy presence. We come, our Father, thanking and adoring you for the giver of every good and every perfect gift. And God, before we go any further to invoke your spirit, help us, Lord, to remember our brothers and sisters in the land of the Ukrainians. Lord, we realize no doubt their hearts are heavy. Things are not going so well, but God, help them to understand that you are still all of our Father and that we are your children. And God, as we continue tonight to invoke your spirit into this place, pray, our Father, that you would allow whatever it is that you want to happen, let it be done with decency and in order. Lord, we realize we can't do nothing without you, but in you and through you all things are possible. So God, we pray now that you would cause us to be concerned about our neighbors, as well as our neighbors' children. Whatever decisions are made tonight, God, help them to be beneficial to our fellow man. Then, Lord, when we leave this place, we'll be able to go home saying that we've done that which we believe is pleasing in thy sight. We want to be beneficial to mankind, God, but more than anything, God, we want to satisfy you. For it is our desire that we bring glory, honor, and praises unto your name. So, God, draw us together tonight as a unified body, because your word declares that where there's unity, there is strength. Bless us now, God, individually and collectively. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Council, is there any changes we need to make to the agenda tonight? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Talbot makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cooper seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed, motion passes unanimously. Let the minutes please reflect that Dr. Kenyon is here, so we have a full house. Next is the approval of the minutes. Of course, we didn't have any ready for this meeting, so there are none to approve tonight. So I'll move to our guest speaker, Will Williams. He's the president and CEO of the Economic Development Partnership of Four-County Endeavor, and I will ask Mr. Williams if he would please give us his annual report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. As you all know, last year was a phenomenal year from an economic development standpoint in Edgefield County. We're just past 1 year of Generac saying they were coming to Edgefield County. They started up operations right after the 4th last year, and as of now, they have 750 plus employees in what is best I've been able to determine the largest capital investment and job creation opportunity from a private sector entity in Edgefield County's history. This was, they've also talked about adding 200,000 more square feet to the 421,000 that they purchased. They'll probably begin that in the third quarter of this year. Very, very exciting project to be a part of, and without y'all's push and drive and everything else you all did, it wouldn't have been possible. So thank y'all. In conjunction with them coming, we are doing several improvement projects cooperatively with you all at the industrial park. We are a sign project. We're going to upgrade the signage there to reflect a little more modern times. We have a contractor that's that's working for us now. And so that signage is being paid for by a grant from the Department of Commerce, some funding that we get through the state, and then from money that you all have set aside over previous years. There's also some road and water infrastructure, a road extension project, and then some water extension being done. The road extension's almost complete. It's just now getting where it's what I call asphalt season. Temperatures for the ground and the air are high enough to where they can lay asphalt, but that 600-foot extension for both that road and the water line should be complete, provided the piping comes in. I mean, I know y'all probably heard there's some supply chain disruptions traveling around in the world. So, that's being paid for by the water line extensions being paid for strictly by the South Carolina Rural Infrastructure Authority. Representative Clyburn was a big push behind getting that organization put together. And then the road extensions being paid for with a grant from AT&T, from Dominion Energy, and then the balance is coming from the county and the CTC. But these extensions were necessary not only for Generac, but as we continue to try to attract more investment into the park. The remainder of the manufacturers that have existed in Edgefield County for a long period of time continue to do well also. Bondex has already had an expansion. They had that late last year. You wouldn't have seen it unless you were reading the trade publications, but through the fee and lieu mechanism that you all voted for them, their new investment goes right into that vehicle. So they've continually grown over the 12 years that I've been in my current role. So that's exciting. But all the other manufacturers appear to be doing well. Chairman Campbell and I are going to take out in the next week or so to be doing visits with our existing industries, making sure everything's going well for them, that Edgefield County remains a business-friendly place, and whatever else we can do to encourage them to grow and expand their current footprints. And so there's a partnership between our organization, the county, with Retail Strategies. This is a company that has been retained and has worked throughout primarily the Southeast to do retail attraction and recruitment. Industrial recruitment is hard enough, but retail is even more of a challenge. But these folks are specialists. They have, since they've been under contract late last year, they have visited the county. They've looked at the incentive zones. They've examined data. They've put boots on the ground, been throughout the county to see where the population centers are, traffic counts, things like that. But in December, they went to Las Vegas to the International Shopping Center show. It was a scaled-down version because of COVID, but they made some contacts with both some regional chains and some national chains as well. And no, they know not to talk to Dollar General. They know that y'all seem to have, I know Mr. Talbert needs one up in his area, and we've let them know that, but we certainly have told them anything but a Dollar General or a Dollar Tree. That they seem to be like kudzu around here. They pop up. But they have, the first thing they did was they looked out 150 miles from Edgefield County and looked at successful mom and pop, because that seems to be what a vast majority of the population of Edgefield County likes to see, is small mom and pop type things. So they reached out to some successful ones in other parts of South Carolina with communities the size of Johnston, Edgefield, and Trenton. And many of them said, we're doing all we can do right here. We don't know that we can take on something else. Some of them said, that's interesting, call us back in a year. So those conversations continue to go on. But they've continued to talk to some regional food establishments as well as some national retailers to look at Edgefield County, and those are long-term conversations. In our world of recruitment, it would be perfect if we could walk into a meeting and say, hey, would you like to come here? And say, God, we're glad you stopped by. Doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So they're continuing those conversations with those entities, but they are working on you all's behalf. So finally, what I'll talk about is unemployment rate in Edgefield County. And at the beginning of 2021, unemployment in Edgefield County was 4.5%, with a state average being 5.3. So that's good news. What does that mean in actual numbers of heads not employed? 480 people out of the workforce in Edgefield County weren't employed. And when 2021 ended, Edgefield County had a 2.8% unemployment rate against the state average of 3.5%. That translates into 297 citizens that were unemployed. And then the last numbers that the Department of Employment and Workforce has put out was in January, and there were 320 people unemployed at that time. So in May of 2020, if you want to go back almost 2 years, there were 1,131 Edgefield County folks that was counting out of work. And then, so the last 4 months of 2021, the numbers were consistently in the upper 200s of unemployed. So if you believe in statistics, they will tell you, statisticians will tell you that full employment is anything less than 4%. So some would consider Edgefield County fully employed. I don't, because there are almost 300 people that aren't working. Anecdotally, I think there are some barriers to workforce engagement that people encounter, and one of those is affordable and available child care. So I say that anecdotally because I haven't done a real deep dive into the numbers and checking around, but daycare, as I can tell throughout, not just in this area, but throughout the state, is usually full or it's not affordable. So that keeps at least one parent from working, because if you run the numbers, if both parents were working, you run the numbers based upon what they might make, it could just wash a salary. So we're going to start looking at that and see, not that we'll come up with any solutions, but at least we'll have some hard and fast figures to work from, and then maybe we can begin some conversations around how do we solve that problem. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. If anyone has any questions, be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any questions for Mr. Williams?
Yes, ma'am.
You stated that the industrious part is signed.
Yes, ma'am.
How long do you think it will be before that sign come there to generate?
I need to show you a couple of pictures because they're in the brick that you all selected. There's a 3-month delay in that, and there's a close approximation that is ready to go. So as soon as we just make that decision, the contractor will begin work. I'm guessing it should be done. This is March, by the beginning of summer, if not sooner.
Other questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Williams, we certainly appreciate what you do for us, and you know, while you credit us with credit is undue, we certainly credit you with working with Generac and others to keep doing, because what people don't see about economic development is, I call it's the behaviors. It's what you're doing out there, and you keep doing the right things, and eventually you succeed. But it's a very competitive game that you have to play, so we appreciate what you do.
Well, y'all have given us the tools as best as you can, remaining within budget, to continue to improve the industrial park, and you keep doing those things and good things happen.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you. Everybody will notice next on the agenda is an executive session. Normally, we put those at the end of the meeting, but two things. Since Mr. Williams is here speaking to us, and I think he'd like to get out and go to about 15 other meetings he could have tonight. I'm gonna ask council, let's go ahead and do an executive session. The good news for the audience, this should not last long, so I don't think we'll be in there more than 4 hours. I'm just kidding. Just kidding, just kidding. A few minutes we'll be in there, I think, so then we'll be back out and continue on with the agenda as you see before you. So, council, is there a motion to go into executive session for a contract matter relating to the proposed location of an industry or other business in Edgefield County?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cooper makes the motion and Dr. Kenyon seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed, motion passes unanimously. We certainly need the administrator and Will back here. Do we need our attorney? We'll be right back.
Sunday, and from what I understand, it's very
Which means you're gonna
turn right back around and come back. keeping up with me. And she knows, and I'm sitting up there holding on to her coattail, cause I'm like, you know, not me. Oh, no. See you later. It's a mess, always. Cigarette ashes. Start making you a little potato You said April did that one for planning commission. Yes. Cause I'm like, I was writing something here for you too. See, I've been crushing some sweet tea. I ain't gonna lie. Huh? But if you get a hold of some good sugar, you won't. I never bitch when I'm planning commission. Okay. Where do you get it from?
I got it from my wife.
Okay, Aretha, we're ready? Okay. All right, we're going to come back into order. County Council is obviously out of executive session into public session. No action was taken in executive session, and no action will be taken from executive session in this meeting. So with that, we move on with the current agenda, which we're up to comments from the public. I'll ask Aretha, is there a list down there I can get of those who have signed up for the first public comment section? Just one, okay. All right, and as a reminder, in both public comment sections, there's a 5-minute limit on each person. You can't trade your time for other people, and it's a 30-minute limit for speakers. The first public comment period, as you know, is for items that are on the agenda but not the public hearing. And we had one person sign up, and that is Gloria Bynum.
do need to apologize for Reverend William and myself. We had planned to come to the meeting in January. His family was quarantined, and I have been quarantined for a while. So he asked me to come tonight to give you an update. The project is beautiful, it's wonderful. We would like to get on the agenda for April to do a presentation to get your approval to continue to go ahead with the project, giving you what it will cost and showing you the artwork that we've done. Thank you.
Okay, would you make
Any
sure,
questions?
can you get with the administrator at some point for that? If we
Or
would-
we could mention to Aretha, one of,
Yes, just to get on the agenda.
yeah.
Thank you. All right, no one else signed up for the first public comment period, so council, I will close that and move to reports. Any questions or comments on reports? Hearing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. There are 11 appointments or reappointments there. I'll ask for council first, is there any that we need to withdraw from the consent agenda tonight? Everybody's okay with all 11 then? Is there a motion to approve the entire consent agenda of 11 people?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Cooper makes the motion. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Talbot seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next is the public hearing. So this is a public hearing on an ordinance to amend Section 2-288 Edgefield County Code of Ordinance Economic Development Committee. Is there anyone here to speak at that public hearing on that topic? Okay, hearing none, council, I will close the public hearing and move to old business. The first item of old business is consideration of approval of third reading of ordinance number 21-22-798, an ordinance to amend Chapter 24 of the Edgefield County Code of Ordinances, Quarries and Mines. We've discussed this a couple of times, but I'll ask the administrator for any additional details we might need to know.
There are no further details.
Okay. Council, like I say, we've discussed this a couple of times. Is there any questions or comments on this ordinance? Hearing none, is there a motion to give third reading approval to ordinance number 21-22-798?
So moved.
Ms. Ireland makes the motion. Dr. Kenyon seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed, motion passes unanimously. Next, under old business is number 2, consideration of approval of second reading of ordinance number 21-22-799 to amend section 2-288 Edgefield County Code of Ordinance Economic Development Committee. Of course, we discussed the details of this last time. Be happy to go over it again if we need to. I'll first ask the administrators, anything new or different we need to know about this particular ordinance?
Nothing different from the first reading.
Council, any questions or comments on this ordinance?
I just have one comment. You know, I think this is a great idea, and I really applaud the idea of having a municipality committee as well. The one suggestion that I would have, since we've reduced the number of council members on the actual committee, is that we rotate that second individual every month. One of the other council members attend that meeting. I think it would be beneficial to rotate that.
And I think that's easy to do, just like the not having a liaison for all these other meetings. It's the same, to me, it's kind of the same process, so.
You don't have to change, I'm not saying change anything on the ordinance. I'm just saying we should take turns participating in that meeting.
Sure. Okay. Any other comments or questions from council? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to give second reading to ordinance 21-22-799?
Second.
Dr. Kenyon makes the motion, and Mr. Talbot seconds. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed, motion passes unanimously. Next is the first item of new business is consideration of approval for resolution number 21-22-1145, Fair Housing Resolution. Mr. Administrator, do you want to walk us through anything related to this we need to know?
This is a resolution that council typically approves every year during the March-April time period. So we're asking again for your approval of this resolution.
Okay. Questions or comments from council? Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve resolution number 21-22-1145?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Talbot makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Ireland seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is number 2 under new business, consideration of approval of first reading of an ordinance number 21-22-780 to revise special tax assessment allowing up to 20 years for investments over $1 million. We discussed this in some detail last time, and now it's coming back to us as an ordinance, so I'll ask the administrator if he'd like to walk us through some of these details, please.
Yes, thank you. We discussed this at the last meeting concerning, in this particular case, the Kendall Mill. Council at the last meeting approved the designation of the property as historic, which allows them to go forward at this point in time. All they will need to do is work with the Edgefield Preservation Association. Max Shanks presides over that group. They will review the plans, make sure the plans fit the criteria for maintaining the historic nature within that building. And then once the project is completed, they'll go back out and then re-inspect it and give a certification that they met all the criteria. At that point, I get that information, I send that to the assessor, who then re-evaluates the amount of taxes that are paid on the property. So you have already given everything that's needed to move forward the 10 years. Now it's going to go back to the Edgefield Preservation Association. What we're talking about tonight is state law allows up to 20 years. Our ordinance currently does not allow beyond the 10-year period of time. If council would like to grant the extra 10 years, and the reason this was requested is in Aiken County, a very similar project at the Enterprise Mill was presented, and they gave them 20 years, and they doubled the value. So let's say the fair market value was $2 million. After 10 years, you'd start taxing based on $4 million. All we have in the ordinance currently that our attorney put together is 20 years. I would like to see council discuss and consider that you would not allow 20 years unless the project was of a certain size, maybe 1 million or 5 million. So a small project wouldn't be granted 20 years, but you would have to have a threshold of a minimal amount. And I would certainly nothing less than 1 million. The second thing would be between years 11 and 20. Would you like it to be at the fair market value that it was purchased at or that the property was assessed at initially? Or would you like to double or triple the amount of that value? Those are the two items that we would need some direction before the second reading. Otherwise, that building has been vacated for probably at least 2 decades. In talking to the mayor who used to work for the Turkey Federation, he did extensive review while he was on the Turkey Federation. The roof is almost at its lifespan. And if something's not done on that building, it could be very similar to what's happened at the hotel where the roof collapsed. And you definitely lose all the investment. One could argue and say, well, why should we give any incentive? Because for every $1 million in investment, that's about $6,000 in taxes to the town. So if we said it was worth $2 million and they did $20 million in repairs, that'd be 20 minus the 2 is 18 times 6. That's $104,000, I believe. $108,000 that you would not be receiving. However, like in this particular case, every apartment's going to have at least 1 or 2 vehicles. These would be probably more, because of the rent price of over $1,000, would be seniors, professionals. I talked to our assessor today. We believe that there would be about $74,000 in vehicle taxes that would be collected every year just from having that apartment complex there. Plus franchise fees that the town would be receiving. But it's also just getting 120 residents or units within the area. The money that they would be spending locally with businesses in Edgefield or just outside of Edgefield doubles and triples for every dollar they spend. And so we need to, especially on existing buildings, try to find ways to infill them. And so this would help make the difference. The bottom line, hopefully with this company, it's not guaranteed they'll even do this, but without this, there's less likelihood of that happening. So I am encouraging, we're encouraging you to go to the 20 years. I would recommend $1 million as the minimum value, and that you would double the incentive or double the fair market value between 11 and 20 that they would be taxed.
Thank you. All right, council. A couple things we need to consider here. Well, I guess 3 things. 20 years, which since
State law
allows it, I just will make the assumption, unless somebody tells me differently, we're all probably in favor of that one. The threshold for investment, I am a proponent of having a reasonable threshold because we want people to invest in Edgefield County. And if you put it up too high, there's no reason to invest. Nobody's going to invest. So, you know, as economic developers like Mr. Williams and others will say, you know, 0 equals 0. You know, if you get no investment, you get no tax money. So, you know, there's always that trade-off. So I personally would like to see it at $1 million, but, you know, I'm not stuck on it. But I just think that's as low as I would go, as you said. I wouldn't go any lower. But I don't know if I'd go any higher because, you know, $1 million spent on historic properties, there's just not that many of them. It's not going to be a flood of those things. So, because houses won't be in that same category. It's businesses, and how many historic businesses would need $1 million more renovation. So, anyway, I guess I'd like to start with that. Is everybody okay with $1 million? Not $1 million? I'd like to hear any comment council has.
I'm good with it.
Everybody okay with that?
We need a threshold. We need a threshold.
Yes. All right, so it sounds like everybody is good with $1 million. And I guess the last question that we need to answer is the doubling the value. So again, based on your example, what you're saying is whatever we decide, we would be saying that if somebody, if the value of the property for the first 10 years was $2 million, then it doubles to $4 million years 11 through 20.
And the reason I'm talking about doubling, that is what Aiken County provided. Not that we're in competition, but again, if I'm a developer and one county is giving me certain incentives, the other county does not, there's more likelihood that they're going to be doing their investment in that other county.
How do y'all feel about the doubling the investment then after that to sort of mirror what Aiken County has done?
I'm fine with doubling it.
I have no problem.
Yeah.
Is that good?
I do not have any problem with that.
Dr. Kenyon, you okay with that?
I mean, I really don't, as long as we, like you said, we, do not go over the 1 million, right?
Well, this is,
If we go over the 1 million, we have less investors, right?
for the threshold,
For the
yes.
threshold, yeah. Oh, no, I don't have no problem with it then. I don't.
All right,
So
so,
I just want to ask a clarifying question
Go
in
ahead.
general. And maybe I'm just not seeing it. There's not currently an assessment
you're right.
set.
It's not in there.
That's going to come back to us next month, or if they do the project.
In this particular case, the
After
purchase price, my understanding was at $1.5 million. So for the first 10 years, they'd be paying taxes based on $1.5 million.
On the purchase price, not after investments.
Correct.
Okay.
And
for 10
so if the
years.
investment was 20 million, instead of being taxed on $21.5 million, they'll be taxed on $1.5 million. So for the first 10 years, there is no threshold. we're now talking between years 11 and 20, what regulations we'd want to put in this ordinance before we have second reading.
So I think maybe what you're asking, in a sense, and tell me, I may be wrong, but this is an ordinance that would apply to anybody, not just this one, not having to be this one's the driver. And they would take advantage of it, but anybody else could too. It would just be an ordinance sitting there, just like the incentive zone and all those things.
Okay, yes, thank you.
For instance, in 2020, you provided this incentive to the former Wells Fargo building. Their investment was under $200,000. So because their investment was under $200,000, they would only be able to apply for the first 10 years. They would not have been able to apply for year 11 through 20. If they had an investment at $1.5 million, then based on what you just discussed, we'd be taking their purchase price, let's say it was $300,000, doubling it to $600,000, and they'd be able to get that incentive because their threshold of investment or improvements would have been over that $1 million.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council? Let's see if I can put it all in one bucket now. So I'm looking at the attorney. Since this is first reading of the ordinance, can we just include what we just said in the motion? Or do we need to amend the ordinance?
Yes, I was going to say, why don't you just pass this and then we will amend at the next, I'll be able to have, the language together
Okay.
for the second reading.
Is that okay with council that, since we've
Because
given some direction?
these are going to have to go in different
Yeah, there's several
sections
things.
within the ordinance.
I got you. Okay. So if that's okay with council, we'll pass this tonight in second reading. We'll get the amended language that can come in and we'll amend it then, so, based on what we just said. All right, so given that, is there a motion to give first reading to ordinance number 21-22-780?
So moved.
Mr. Talbot makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Ireland seconds. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed, motion passes unanimously. Item 3 under new business is consideration of approval to add assistant administrator title and duties to an existing Edgefield County employee's duties. This is an important step for Edgefield County, so I'm going to ask the administrator if he'd like to discuss it for us.
I would. Twice before, when I was with the county, I asked council to allow us to have an assistant county administrator. Back in 2010, we made Lynn Strom the assistant county administrator / finance director. In 2015, we made Bruce Cooley the assistant county administrator / finance director. So this is not something that we've never done before. We have done it probably because you're so kind to me that you allowed this to happen. This month, this is my 12th month here. I had originally intended to be here for maybe 3 months, is what Scott Cooper mentioned to me.
Adapt, improvise,
And then he said
overcome.
adapt and, and it's been a great relationship, and I've really enjoyed it. I would like to have a little bit of relief between working for the county, 2 other towns within the county, and 1 in Saluda County. I'd like to get down to about 20 hours a week working, and I can't do that unless there's someone that I could turn to and ask them to help me out on certain projects, and when we may have an issue and I may not be here. Typically, my week is, I'm here for 3 days, sometimes 4 days, and as Aretha asked me when she first got the job, can you tell me what days you're going to be working? And I said, I don't know from week to week. It all depends what council wants and what citizens ask, and so it varies from week to week. This would go ahead and help me out a lot and would allow me to consider staying on a little bit longer. I'm going to be talking to the chairman and vice chairman about that. Our agreement with me ends at the end of the month, and if you would be so kind to do this, then I'd be asking someone here and to be our assistant. So I'd like you to vote on it, and then if you'd give me a moment, I'd like to go ahead and mention who I'd like to go ahead and consider in this position.
So you don't want to mention it first before we vote on it?
No, you may change your mind.
Well, of course, we know, by the way, in case you're interested in the audience, we know. All right, so anyway, all right, so is there a motion to add the assistant administrator title and duties to an existing Edgefield County employee's duties?
So moved.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Ms. Ireland makes a motion, Mr. Cooper seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now, do we need to rescind it or not? So let's see.
I would like, my plans are to start in the next day or two to have Doc Hart be the assistant county administrator / whatever else we want to call him, building official, department director of planning and building, and so we could put on a lot of different titles for him. But the main thing is he'll do whatever I ask him to do. So, and with that, I thank you. I've already talked to Doc. I've had a chance to talk to most of you about this. And I think this is going to go a long way to moving the county forward. We've accomplished an awful lot, I believe, in the last year. As I told Councilman Telber today, there's still an awful lot that I'd like to go ahead and get accomplished. We'll be talking about some of those things in our budget session. So you may have me around here for a little bit longer. So thank you all for doing that.
Thank you, Rod.
All right.
And thank you, Doc.
Yeah. So
Calling you later.
I'm assuming you just accepted that by raising your hand. So thank you. We appreciate it.
Don't bag it out.
Too late.
All right. Thank you. Then next item, council, on the agenda is number 4, the approval of bids for stormwater remediation. So again, I'll ask the administrator if he'd like to talk about this work and these bids.
This is really exciting, at least from my standpoint. Just in the past couple of years, we had a couple of roads wash out, and primarily we lost these 2 roads because the stormwater pipes underneath the roads were inadequate and needed to be refurbished. By approving this project, we will be removing approximately 12 crossings, putting in new pipe, and we should be in great shape for at least a couple of decades with those roads. The County Transportation Committee was kind enough to go ahead and pay for all the engineering. And last year, we committed to paying for this work with the American Recovery Plan funds. The work was estimated at $750,000, and we were, believe it or not, we were able to come in under $500,000, which in today's world, coming in under bid on any type of construction project is almost unheard of. So that is really, we're very happy about it. The price that we're recommending is to Cherokee Construction Company. They're in the Columbia area for $457,422. The next lowest was with TriStar. They're a local company. We do have in our purchasing ordinance an incentive for local Edgefield County companies, but it was not enough to go ahead and make the difference. So we are recommending Cherokee. However, it is something that we may want to look at in the future. I believe that the incentive that we have is good, but I would really love to see local companies, if at all possible, get more of the work that we have, along with minority companies in the future. So that is something we'll talk about. But tonight, if you could go ahead and approve this bid, they'll get started within the next 30 to 60 days.
Council, any questions or comments on this item? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the low bid of $457,422 to do the stormwater remediation?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Talbot makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cooper seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make a comment, we still have one final project that we're still working on, and that is the Barton Road area. It's right off of Bright Harp or where Bondex is at. That area floods on a frequent basis. We have a preliminary design. They have to talk to a couple of the homeowners that are downstream where the water would be going to some existing ponds to determine what it would cost to go ahead and make improvements in their ponds. Once we have those details to you, then we will go ahead and look at starting some design drawings and bringing that back to you. But probably about 30% to 40% of the water that goes into that basin comes off of state highways. And so we'd be going to the South Carolina Department of Transportation and asking for some financial assistance. Altogether, this project we believe will be in about $1 million to $1.2 million range. So if we got funding from the state and then we used our American Recovery Plan fund money for the rest, this should solve that problem and really will go a long ways to taking care of one of the major areas that we have been discussing for at least the last decade. All you are very familiar with Fred Peterson. He was a frequent visitor here for many years talking about this area and the problems that we have in this area. So I'm looking forward to wrapping this one up, and then to my knowledge, Doc, that should handle most, if not all, the stormwater issues that we have right now in the county, major ones anyways. Yes, that's correct. So that will be coming to you at a later date. I just want to let you know we haven't forgotten, and to let the citizens know we haven't forgotten them.
Thank you. All right, council, next is number 5 under new business, the approval to purchase stretchers and ambulance for our EMS. Of course, these are 2 items, so I'd ask the administrator to address each one if you would.
Yes. These 2 items are vitally important for the county and EMS. As you all know, we just purchased an ambulance back in December, and it cost us about $250,000. We were able to get a demonstrator model. In fact, it's going to be in Myrtle Beach. I think it's next week at the EMS conference to show it off to different people about the latest and the greatest ambulance. And you know, for us in Edgefield County, we haven't always had the latest and greatest to show off to everybody. And so we're going to be the showplace over there for this ambulance. However, we need to be forward-thinking, and it's now taking anywhere from 16 to 20 months to build a new ambulance. Not so much the body itself as the chassis. So we would like to go ahead and order an ambulance that will not be delivered till sometime in 2023, probably in the fall to late fall of that year. But that will get us ahead of where we need to be. We have 2 ways of paying for that. One would be going back to the hospital board like we did before. I've talked to the chairman recently, and he said he would be very open to it and asking them to pay for it. Now, the payment's not due until it's delivered, so it's not like we have to go ahead and pay them up front. The second way would be if they said no, that we could use the American Recovery Plan funds. We have right now probably $3 million available that we have not committed with those funds. That could be used. The second item is stretchers. Stretchers have a much longer life, but After a while, you get very concerned about a breakdown of the stretcher, and we certainly don't want to put a large person that weighs hundreds of pounds on that and a stretcher break on us. So they have gone beyond their normal life. So we have a price here from Stryker, who all of our equipment is designed inside the ambulances for a Stryker stretcher. And that's all we have right now. So it's a sole source bid. And so this is the second item that we would either get the hospital to help us pay for or use American Recovery Plan funds. This item we would be purchasing immediately, and with your approval, I would be talking to Sam Spaeth, who is the chairman of the hospital board, for their help. And again, he was very encouraging the last time I talked to him, and they unanimously approved the ambulance that we purchased in December. So tonight would be asking you for permission to purchase these and then to go to the hospital board to ask for their funding of the two items.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? Hearing none. Pretty straightforward. Is there a move, approval then? Is there a motion to have approval to purchase the stretchers and the ambulance from EMS and asking the hospital board first for that money? Is there a motion to do that?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Talbot makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Ireland seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed, motion passes unanimously. Next, we're up to comments from the public, so I'll look at the clerk again to ask, is there a sign-up list down there for the second public comment period? All right. I think she scratched two that you wanted, but I think the third you wanted scratched was probably Nathan York. Okay. So, thank you. And then let me look here for a second. Two people sign up then. Then the next person, or the first person on the list then would be, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, Kately. Yes, thank you, Eckery.
I'm Kathy Eckery, Sandy Springs Road, Trenton. I have done some research on the Dubin Guru Group, Mr. Chairman, and also the Kendall Mill project. So I really have more questions and concerns than anything. Do you know if the Guru Group, because it looks like on their webpage they specialize in historical preservation projects in Chicago. Do you know if they're going to apply for federal preservation tax credits? It's 20% off of their investment monies, but there's stipulations. It's a hard thing to get approved on according to what the government has put out about the preservation tax credits. And it applies to moderate to low-income housing. So that raised an alarm with me because I know we have expressed the $23 million renovation, but we haven't really gone into if this is going to have stipulations, and after it's developed, will this company then sell it to somebody an investor that's going to want to manage these 120 housing units? And I know the administrator seems to think that it's going to be upper-end, high-quality housing units, but that's not always the case. And do we, as a county, are we able to control who can buy that property after Guru finishes developing it? And I lived through Jimmy Carter economics. We lived my husband and I were just starting out. We know how tight the banks became, how high the interest rates became, how hard it was to do business. So if this project is going to devolve over a period of time into Section 8 housing, the taxpayers are going to be responsible for that. If we're going to give up our 20 years of deferred tax income for this development, we're going to be responsible for that. I mean, we've got to do fire, police, water, everything, you know, all the infrastructure things. We're going to be responsible for that as well. And then the state will also have tax credits that are available from that part. So it was a very lean web page for Dubin Guru. They had a lot of pictures, and they had very little up-to-date information. I mean, their blog was from 2015. Their media reports were from 2014 to 2017. There was nothing really current, and there was not a lot of information there. So that kind of raised some more red flags with this particular company wanting to buy. And I understand, you know, if the roof's getting ready to go, you know, something needs to be done. But if the country is looking at a depressed economic future, and we've bitten off a lot of big projects for 27,000 citizens to have to be tax responsible for, I just would like to know more about this particular project. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next person to speak is John Galt.
John Galt, Sweetwater Creek Drive. I'm struggling here because I'm torn. But I'd like to salute Mr. Leduc for his service, because I know he could be on a beach someplace with an umbrella and a nice drink, enjoying the waves. But instead, he dedicates himself not only to this community, but to other communities. Thank you for your service. The reason I'm torn is because I brought this subject up before, and it's communication. I have been at these meetings where I've heard councilmen say, we communicate with our constituents. I'm a constituent. Nobody communicates with me. And I don't think this county has a way of communicating with the constituents. And I think instead of spending a lot of money on a lot of things, that maybe this chamber here needs to figure out a way to come up with a way to communicate with the people. I see you guys up here voting on hundreds of thousands of dollars. Very few questions, very little discussions. It's like monkey see, monkey do. Anybody? Oh, okay, yeah, okay. And it concerns me, because it tells me then that you're doing business behind these doors that the public doesn't get to hear. And I'd like you to be more transparent. I'd like to know what's going on. I'd like to hear some of these discussions to see exactly what's driving this train down this road. Because if I don't like the way this train's being driven, as a public citizen of this county, I should have a right to say, I disagree with this. I don't like this. And again, I'll bring up the fact that your webpage, you guys claim to be leaders. And I say, no, sir, no, ma'am, no, ma'am. You are representatives of me and these people in this building and the people in Edgefield. And we have a right to know what's going on. We don't have to be kept in the dark, and I feel that that's what's going on, is we're being kept in the dark. I seen you all sit up here and vote yes on zoning and rezoning when you knew the majority of the people said no, but you all voted yes anyway, with no explanations of why you voted yes. You were given petitions of people who signed those saying no, 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 with just a few people that said yes. And I know for a fact I have not met one person that said I'm pro-zoning or rezoning. You got this guy over here working for economic development, but I've never seen anything come across my mail talking about economic development in Edgefield. I moved here because it's a rural county. I want it to stay a rural county. I don't want economic development, even though I know it's coming, it's gotta be planned for. But to go out and recruit it and drag it in here and change the face of our community, I'm not in agreement with.
Thank you. And that was the last person who had signed up, so council, I'll close the public comment period there and move to the county administrator's report.
I really have very little to say other than thank you for putting up with me and allowing me to serve you. And I look forward to even a better second year with you all.
I like the way you said that. Sorry, I should have asked for permission, but I like the way you said that.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right, well, thank you. And for Chairman's comments, I have two very brief comments to make. First, council, if you will go ahead and add to your agendas, and I'm now communicating this as openly as I can, that on March the 15th, that's March the 15th at 6 o'clock, right here, we will be having a budget workshop. So we'll have anybody here that needs to be here, wants to be here. So council, I haven't heard any objections to that date, so March the 15th at 6 o'clock here. I'll ask the administrator and the clerk to ensure they contact all the department heads and elected officials this week so they know when this meeting is and if they want to attend. I just want to ensure council hears about any needs that they think we're missing. And then, of course, there'll be time for public comment also if somebody wants to come and make public comment during that time. The second item, I just wanted to say we appreciate first Doc Clark stepping up to be the assistant administrator. It's not something that he or anybody else takes lightly. And we also appreciate Roger Leduc for being so willing to continue. So both of those moves help us move forward with, I'm going to call it expertise and institutional knowledge in all of our areas, which is a real plus for the citizens. So with that, council, I have no other comments. We have no other business to discuss. I'd accept a motion to adjourn. Ms. Ireland makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cooper seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed, the motion passes unanimously.
Beautiful day, man.